In the tumultuous midst of war's relentless chaos, a silent horror festered, the Nazi brothels. A chilling tale hidden in the annals of World War II, more ghastly than one can imagine. Welcome to History on Fleek. Today we'll journey into the depths of this dark reality. The Second World War was a backdrop of fear and darkness, intensified by Nazi Germany's militarized brothels. Established throughout occupied Europe, these establishments were more than just buildings. They were oppressive tools of manipulation and control. By 1942, an estimated 500 such places existed, commandeered hotels and buildings, all under the strict surveillance of the ubiquitous Wehrmacht, catering to both transient and stationed soldiers. Behind the walls of these establishments, a sinister operation unfolded. Over 34,000 European women were cruelly torn from their lives to serve as unwilling companions. Bereft of their freedom, they became unwitting pawns in the Nazis' twisted machinations, their dignity a silent casualty of war. A particularly disquieting method of procuring these women was through the infamous La Panca, or Rafle, roundups. In the besieged cities of Eastern Europe, amidst ordinary days and lives, terror would descend. German units would burst onto the scene, the streets resonating with the thunder of boots and the ominous hum of vehicles. Girls and women, in the midst of their everyday routines, would suddenly be snatched, their familiar world replaced by the grim reality of military brothels. The grim reality was especially harsh in Eastern Europe. Polish and Soviet women were forced to endure a dreadful existence, their lives transformed into a horrifying tableau of exploitation by German soldiers. Polish girls were classified as suitable for forced labor. They were sent not only to Germany, but were repeatedly mistreated by German men. This inhumane abuse became so frequent that the young victims were unable to perform any assigned labor. The first-hand account of Swiss Red Cross driver Franz Mavic sketches a disturbing picture of this horror. Mavic describes soldiers behaving inappropriately towards women, their ages ranging between 15 to 25. A soldier would shine a flashlight into a woman's eyes to the amusement of his peers. They would taunt and invade their personal spaces with no regard. The shadow of this horror stretched beyond Poland, permeating the Soviet Union. A report from the International Military Tribunal recounts the appalling scenario in the city of Smolensk. German forces opened a brothel, forcing hundreds of women into it, dragging them heartlessly by their arms and hair. Their humanity was completely disregarded, and their dignity was crushed under the weight of Nazi domination. However, amidst this dire landscape, glimmers of courage flickered. Some women, pushed to the brink of despair, dared to escape. In 1941, a brave group of Polish and Soviet women escaped a military brothel in Norway, seeking sanctuary within the refuge of a local Lutheran church. Even as we celebrate their courageous escape, we can't help but shudder at the nightmare they fled. Some visibly pregnant women were released, bearing physical evidence of their ordeal, but they carried a social stigma, unfairly thrust upon them, that would hinder their return to their families. As we grapple with the horrors faced by women in Eastern Europe, our narrative now shifts to occupied France, revealing another layer of this unspeakable atrocity. In this Western theater of the war, the terror unleashed by the Nazi regime assumed a bureaucratic aspect, evident in a rigorously managed system of brothels. Established even before 1942, the Wehrmacht set up around 100 new establishments based on a pre-existing government-controlled network. The system was ruthlessly organized. The soldiers provided official visitation cards by the Oberkommando des Heeres. Any form of physical contact with French women outside these establishments was strictly prohibited. The unsettling policies extended to even considering mandatory weekly visits for younger soldiers to prevent what Field Marshal von Brauchitsch euphemistically termed sexual excesses. These brothels represented not just an alarming exploitation of women, but also a facade of order and control. Women were subjected to regular medical checkups, ostensibly to slow the spread of sexually transmitted diseases. This veneer of medical propriety merely added another layer of horror to an already macabre system. Beneath this carefully orchestrated facade, a darker reality lurked: the horror of forced companionship. The very women who were subjected to frequent medical checkups and controlled by restrictive policies were also the victims of forced servitude. Historians like Franz W. Seidler proposed that the women who registered for the German military brothels were already engaged in the oldest profession prior to the war. Yet, this notion is vehemently disputed by others, like Ruth Seifert, a professor of sociology, who insisted that these women were forcibly coerced into this detestable existence by their German captors. Such contrasting perspectives only serve to highlight the tangled, terrifying complexities of the histories etched within these brothels. This harrowing assertion is substantiated by the testimonies brought to light during the trial of the major war crimes before the International Military Tribunal in Nuremberg in 1946, and further corroborated by Raoul Hilberg's 1961 book. While some allegedly volunteered to work in the brothels, seeking a lesser evil in comparison to the dread of concentration camps, their choice cannot be seen in isolation from the terrifying circumstances of war and occupation. Their decision underscores the depths of despair and fear that the war instilled, reminding us yet again of the pervasive horror of this era. Speaking of concentration camps, the narrative delves deeper into the heart of darkness. Here, the abhorrent infrastructure of exploitation took a more sinister form, with the establishment of concentration camp brothels. These institutions were not just venues for degrading prisoners, but also means to manipulate them into cooperating with their captors. These camp brothels, known as Lagerbordell, were a testament to the Nazis' malicious tactics. The first of these was introduced in Mauthausen-Gusen in 1942. Auschwitz followed, creating its own dreadful den within its infamous walls. Brothels found their place in other concentration camps, like Buchenwald, Neuengamme, Dachau, Dora Mittelbau, and Sachsenhausen. Each served as a chilling reminder of humanity's capacity for evil. The women forced to work in these brothels, mainly from Ravensbrück concentration camp and Auschwitz, were caught in a horrific system. Barracks surrounded by barbed wire fences were converted into brothels, with individual rooms for up to 20 female prisoners. Each brothel was controlled by a female overseer, a grim puppeteer who orchestrated this vile charade. The brothels were open solely during the night, serving the camp's VIPs and prisoner functionaries with the lamentable token of coupons. Jewish male prisoners were not permitted to partake, and the roster of patrons was an exclusive register of Aryan VIPs. In the midst of this debauchery, the SS dangled the false promise of kinder treatment, lesser sentences, attracting the women to their horrifying lair. This incited resentment and envy among the other inmates, leading to increased discord and distress. It was a cruel, calculated move, adding more mental agony to the already unbearable physical ordeal. In this somber tale of manipulation and misuse, Heinrich Himmler, one of the most infamous figures of the Nazi regime, discovered an additional way to exploit the camp brothels. He turned his focus on the inmates marked with the pink triangle, the symbol assigned to homosexual prisoners, with the intent to use these establishments as a tool for his misguided form of correction. His idea was to encourage these individuals to spend time with the opposite sex, imposing compulsory visits to the brothels once per week. In his skewed perspective, he believed this could correct their homosexuality. The term correction hangs heavy with irony here, as these sessions were nothing more than another layer of affliction and severe infringement of human rights. Thus, even in their diversity, the victims of Nazi atrocities found a shared experience. They were all subjected to a system that sought to control and belittle their fundamental human identities. The echoes of these brothels' monstrous abuse reverberate throughout history, the silent victims still haunting the pages of history. Their stories deserve to be heard, their dignity reclaimed, and the horrors they suffer recognized for what they were: an atrocious violation of human rights in an era marked by unprecedented brutality. So here we conclude today's journey into the past. As we navigate the horrors of history, we remember not to wallow in despair, but to honor the victims and their struggles, to learn from these gruesome episodes, and to commit to ensuring that such atrocities are never repeated. This is History on Fleek, and we'll see you next time.